to a special edition of the Silva Harapetian Show. I am so thrilled to have a guest with me today who is making some serious moves. Actually, he's been making moves all of his career, but this one is a big one.
Are you English?
No, American. Amerikatsi.
I was actually born in Armenia. Might as well head back to the homeland and learn about my Armenian roots.
Start over, you know?
I feel like every time I've heard Michael Goorjian talk about Amerikatsi, the movie, it really sounds like it's come from a very special place, and I can't wait to share it with you. Thank you so much for joining us, Michael.
Is this about the housing situation?
If you don't know what we're talking about the movie Amerikatsi that is now potentially a contender to be voted to be in the, correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, in the foreign film category for the Oscars, correct?
Yes. Yeah,
But
we've been shortlisted, so there are
right.
15 films now that are competing, and soon they'll vote for the final 5. That will be the 5 nominations.
5 nominations for the Oscars. I was going to say this whole thing sounds really exciting, but it's really not an easy path to get that nomination. So there's a reason why we're doing this as a special edition. We're hoping to actually get the word out so that people who do have votes for this particular category are able to see the film. Tell us a little bit about what this process is like, because it's really complicated, is it not?
We really are just trying to encourage people to see the film. There's a lot of rules and regulations around it. We got to be careful about what we say. But we are, right now, we only have, literally, it's just like 2 weeks where every film that has been shortlisted has to go out and try to get as much attention as possible for the Academy so that they see the films. And this is the first time Armenia has ever been shortlisted. So that's a big step in the right direction for us. So it's a lot of running around, shaking hands. It's like politics. You know?
And this is the behind the scenes stuff that a lot of people don't see, right? And also the path to get to this point is not an easy one. So many things have to go right with so many different elements of movie making. And first and foremost, the movie just has to be good, right?
Yeah.
That's the first thing. And it's so amazing to hear that you not only wrote the movie, but you directed the movie, and you were the lead part in this movie, Charlie. And I, waited a bit to see this. And when I finally did, none of the reviews, none of the explanations, and none of the plot things that you read about it, and none of the trailers do this movie justice. And while we've heard a lot within the Armenian community how much this is about Armenia and this man who repatriates back to Armenia during the Soviet era, what I think gets lost is how much this movie is about the human condition.
Yeah. Well, we really tried our best with the film to make something that would appeal to everyone, not just Armenians.
Right.
A lot of the films that have been made tend to, unless you're Armenian, there's not a lot of people that are driven to see them. And so by making something, I mean, the film is very Armenian. We shot in Armenia. The entire cast and crew is Armenian. But the story itself is one that you don't have to be Armenian to connect with. And that's what has helped us get as far as we have here with the Academy. And I think for me, the more other people see us and know our stories, the better. It helps us. And so that was kind of one of the goals with this film, was to make something that could really open up our audience a lot more and have a lot more people interested in Armenia.
Yeah. I mean, artistically speaking, this movie is amazing. The way you were able to create feeling in the way you captured the movie and told the movie. But also the movie is, when I say it's about the human condition, it really is about discovery of one's identity. And I think that's a theme that we, at any point in our lives, have to sort of discover and dig into, no matter where you're from. And then also trying to make create purpose and meaning for our lives. And then it explores the resilience in humans. It explores what it means to have hope. It explores what it means to have freedom. And all of those things are just simply told through the lens of this particular character who happens to be Armenian, who happens to go back to Armenia. And I think those are themes that are universal and common no matter who you are and where you come from.
Yeah, sure. I mean, especially here in the United States, everybody comes from somewhere to a degree, and so it's the same. You know, I've heard it been told that the film is a bit of an like Ellis Island story in reverse. You know, we've seen a lot of stories about immigrants coming to the United States and trying to find a new life, but everybody that's come to the United States, they came from somewhere. And what is that longing to reconnect with the roots of where you're from? You know, you could be Irish American or Polish, and you come from a place where everybody looks like you, or, you know, and they speak your language. And for Armenians in particular, we have a very the search for and the struggle over identity is something that myself and I think many Armenians know a lot about.
Mhm.
Because of our history and who we are as a culture. We're both spread out and have all these pockets and different, you know, dialects and different things, but at the same time, what's the common thread? What's the thing that makes us all similar? And to me, with the film, in the film, a lot of the film is about a prisoner played by myself who's looking into an apartment from his cell window where there's another man and his wife living and watching them. And a lot of what he sees is, in a way, the Armenian culture that he's come back searching for. And I've been asked, like, well, what is that? You know, is it the food? Is it the music? Is it, you know, the way people talk? And to me, it really came down to the dinner table or the table, like eating. And in thinking about, and I had this experience when I went to Armenia for the first time. You know, I'm used to being in LA and eating a meal is like, you know, I'm rushing to an audition and I'm going to eat in the car, I'm going to quickly eat. There, I would, you know, I'd go and you'd sit down for a meal and it'd be 5 hours.
Yeah.
And the joy of connecting with others, that's something that I feel like Armenians really know well. And in terms of what we share, it can't just be our trauma and our tragedies, but what do we have to share with the world that's beautiful? And that to me is kind of was the heart of what I wanted to share.
Yeah. And you know, that's a universal story too, right? I mean, we hear about how much we're missing connection nowadays and how technology and social media has really torn, you know, units of family units or friendships apart. And we're so busy on the in the rat race that we forget to honor those moments. And I know within not just the Armenian community, but a lot of immigrant communities, they've tried to sort of keep that intact. And, you know,
Yeah.
Sunday night dinner or during the week dinner, everybody gets together around the table, or you've got people visiting. It's creating these connections. And I think that's really a great message, and it's important now more than ever, right? And this is why it's also, again, it's not an Armenian story. It's a universal story about a man who's on a journey of self-discovery. And, you know, I love you had so much symbolism in the movie. And also many of us have read about the harsh conditions of the Soviet era and communism, right? But the way it was turned into comedy within the movie, it was really tactfully done, because it could go the wrong way if it's too much. But
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about some of that journey and writing it and finding the right balance of, you know, a serious nature of someone being in prison and also sort of inserting the comedy into it.
Yeah. It wasn't easy. It was a risk because, as you said, you know, if it's not done right, it cannot, you know, it could really quickly not work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, here's the thing is that underlying the film itself is this idea that I feel like, especially in movies and television today, there's so much reminders of what's wrong with human beings and why we're, we all want to kill each other, and what all the problems, and yet there are aspects of humanity that are beautiful, and we don't see that often in film or highlighted. And one of those things is, I have a cousin who's a priest, an Armenian priest, who I remember him saying this at a Christmas one year. He was talking to a bunch of Armenians and saying, hey, look, like, we've had our tragedies and we've been through so much, but you're all miracles that you're here. We're here. There are people that wanted us not to be here, and we are here. And that idea of, despite all of the things that can oppress us or contain us, and this, creatively, you can't keep humanity down. You can't, and in the film, despite all of the horrible things they're going through, there you see even the guards, there's lightness and humor and joking and playfulness, because despite everything, human beings will, we have a part of us ourselves that are resilient and can survive and have survived. And Armenians are definitely a testament to that.
Yeah.
So
there's definitely moments of joy that are really beautifully done in the movie.
Yeah.
Now, when you and I were speaking a couple days ago, you said, I asked you, you've done so many interviews and you get a lot of the same questions. And I said, if there was something you wanted to talk about that you haven't, what would that be? And you told me a little bit about how there are so many stories behind the stories of how this movie was made and came about. Can you share a couple of those with me?
Camera, action!
We shot the film in 2020, which we started in March, which was right at the beginning of the pandemic. And because of that, we faced a lot of challenges in terms of finishing the film. Like the rest of the world, we went into lockdown. And so there were months where we were just sitting, waiting, wondering if we'd be able to finish the film. I'll share one particular story. Was the actor who plays Tigran, who's the guard that is in the apartment that my character is watching. He's a Spanish Armenian actor named Hovik Kushkarian. So if you remember, the pandemic was, Spain was hit really bad at the beginning. And we had shot maybe 5 or 6 days, and we had shot only half of it. It was mostly his scenes, and we only shot half of his scenes. So we hadn't completed his shooting, and he was like, look, Michael, I'm sorry, but my mother is in Madrid, and Madrid got hit really bad. I have to go. They're talking about a travel ban, and I don't, I'm sorry, but I have to. So he left.
Wow.
Armenia. And then the 2 Russian actors we had, they also left and went back to Moscow. Going back to the United States, my family was in San Francisco, and I ended up staying. And then, we were in lockdown, and we waited.
You stayed in Armenia during the lockdown. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I was there for 7 months. And we wait, for months on end. Am I ever going to see my family again? Because there were no planes. There was no, I was on the opposite side of the planet, just waiting to see what would happen. But slowly the government allowed us to shoot the film, like portions of the film. They said we wanted to shoot all the scenes that are just me in the prison cell, and they said, okay, since it's just a few people, we don't want, a lot of people gathering, so you can shoot that. And then months later, okay, you can shoot the scenes that are outside because that's safe or whatever. But the story I wanted to tell you is about Hovik. Getting him back into the country, we were like, there were no planes. So we're like, maybe there was somebody who knew someone who had a private jet. Maybe we could get that, or we could maybe a boat, so eventually there were flights again, and we found a way to, it was I remember being in a car driving through Yerevan with one of our producers, Arman, and he was on the phone, and he said, okay, and he pulled over, and he said, I have to go somewhere, and I jumped out, and then I saw him at the office, and he said, okay, we can get Hovig back. And he had gone to like a park and smoked a cigar with some minister, and that was that was the deal. So, but the deal for like 2 weeks before anybody could work with them or see him. This was like, I mean, they did this everywhere, and we were like, there's no way we can wait 2 weeks. We don't have the money, the time to. So the way that they would check that he was quarantined, and they did this everywhere, in the United States as well, they would call your smartphone, like FaceTime you, and you'd have to show, yeah, look, here I am, I'm in my apartment. Well, all of his scenes are in an apartment, all of Tigran's scenes. So we had a deal with the crew that if they would call, we would all hide, and then he could, oh yeah, look, I'm in my apartment, you see. And just don't point it that towards the camera. Don't show the camera, just show
Right.
So they I don't think they ever called, but that was our plan.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we went through so many different things, and I've mentioned this before, that like a month after we wrapped is when the war broke out with Azerbaijan in Artsakh, and there was cast and crew that had to go fight, and our composer Andronik Barbarian, I met him in 2018, and he was still in the army. Everybody has to serve in Armenia, and luckily he was finished his service, so he didn't have to go. He could do our score for us. I mean, one of our producers sent me a video recently of after wrapping our first week of shooting, we were it's just the cast and crew, there was a folk band in the scene, and then after we had wrapped, we had a party for like 2 hours where they played and everybody's dancing on the set, and so we had a lot of fun and joy, which I think also you can feel that in the movie.
Based on the plot of the movie, that you're going to leave the movie theater with a lot of hope and joy, right? That's not it's counterintuitive to the plot of the movie. But the other thing I noticed was there wasn't a lot of dialogue in the movie.
Yeah,
there was a lot. I mean, the guard Tigran, who's the guy that you're watching through your cell, I don't think he ever says anything.
Well, you don't hear what he says, but yeah.
I mean, a lot of the acting and a lot of this movie was about the emotional relationship and the emotional roller coaster of both, and all of the cast, and you really do go on an emotional journey. It's a completely different thing to capture on film and on video than it is with a whole bunch of dialogue. As someone who does this for a living, I know how hard it is to capture an emotion. And how did you go there as a writer, and how did you go there as an actor to be able to convey those really powerful moments?
Well, the story itself, one of the fact that there is little dialogue was part of helps it become more universal. There are not a lot of films that are people tend to shy away from foreign films because of the dialogue. I'm going to read a bunch of subtitles, and so because there's less dialogue, it's very easy for people who are not Armenian to get into it. And there's Armenian, Russian, English being spoken in the film. Everybody speaks the language, what they would actually speak. But yeah, I think, storytelling and film, you have the ability to affect people's minds and stimulate, ideas, but you also have the ability to emotionally affect people. And that's what ultimately for me, films and theater has always, the things that have really stuck with me are the ones that I've been emotionally affected by. It's not easy to do, but I think a lot of it was, especially with I'm an actor, and part of the reason I like directing is I like working with actors, and I like trying to help find good performances. And so probably the one thing I'm most proud of in the film is everyone, down to the smallest roles, they're so good. And these are all actors from Armenia, besides myself and the actor playing Tigran and the 2 Russian actors. Everybody else is based in Armenia, and they're so good. But part of that was, for me as a director, to allowing a lot of times what makes people bad actors is what's been done to them before they're, performing. Like they've been restricted from being good. And allowing someone to give a good performance, it's hard to do, because you have cameras and you have all this stuff going on. But I think that helped kind of elevate the film emotionally as well. You kind of feel, even this is a bit much, but just the prop people and the set dressers, they put so much of their hearts into the film, and you feel it, I think.
Yeah, it's a very emotional film. It's a very clever film. There was so much symbolism. I don't want to give too much away in the movie because I want people to see it, but there's the character trying to find where his family is really from, the placement of the birds, the saving of the egg. So if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, pay attention to that stuff, because it really, you tied those symbolic moments beautifully throughout the movie in a way that didn't feel forced, that felt a natural progression of him finally sort of being able to figure out his roots.
It's said all the time, but nobody does it, which is, you really can trust an audience. Like, audiences are a lot smarter than filmmakers or studios tend to think. You can trust that they understand. You don't have to force people.
Has that surprised you? Because I know you've been getting feedback on that stuff. Has it surprised you how many audiences pick up on those nuances?
Well, I don't know if it surprised me. What I'm happy about is the film works for someone who knows nothing about Armenia or nothing about anything. The film also works if you know everything about Armenia. There are some Armenians, we are our biggest critics or whatever, who are like, well, that refrigerator wasn't that we wouldn't have had that, but the amount of layers that are in the film are there. They help support the emotional aspect of the film, but you don't have to get everything. And the comment I hear most is when people see it a second time or a third time, they go, oh my God, I enjoyed it more than the first time, because there's so many things in there that I got, and you don't have to get that stuff the first time to enjoy the movie, which is important. Because there is, sometimes things are so layered that it's like, I don't know what I just watched. And you have to like go to a class and write an essay before you understand, before you know what the film is. This, you can watch it and it's enjoyable and good, but there's depth to it that makes it something that,
You're right. There are a lot of layers to it. You can either see it on the surface and get what the message is, but then how much you know about history, how much you know about that era, how much you know about the culture, both the Armenian culture and the Soviet time era, and the nuances and the things that happen, the level of your understanding of those things makes the movie even more interesting. I was telling someone, I have an interesting understanding because I didn't have an experience as an Armenian who lived in the Soviet era Armenia, but I had family who lived there, and I heard stories about things, and then watching some of those things be actually inserted in the movie. Some people who don't have the knowledge might say, "Oh, that's clever writing," but no, these things happen for real, right? So,
Oh yeah.
Его видели в общественном месте. Модным, ярким галстуком на шее.
Actually, that was one thing that many people don't get, and even I even had this happen in Armenia, where after a screening, some younger Armenians, I was talking to film student types, and they were asking about the film, and they were like, "Wow, it was really good, but why did you make up all that stuff about, like, you know, that the silly things, like he got arrested for wearing a tie? Why did you make that, or that he would?" I was like,
right,
"No, those are real.
right,
That really happened." And they're like, "What?"
right.
Like, there are so many they come across as humorous and absurd, but things were that absurd, you know.
Yeah, the absurdity was real, and that's what made
Yeah,
it so
yeah.
challenging for people who actually did repatriate back in their lives and the circumstances. So
Yeah.
what can we do? What can the community do? What can anyone who watches this interview, what can they do to support the film and support this path to Oscar nomination? What can we do?
Okay, first of all, pray.
Pray. Okay.
Pray. Light a candle. I, the vote for nominations ends in it ends on the 16th of January. So the main thing is the encouraging of Academy members to see the film, because unlike the films from larger countries like France or Germany, we don't have the kind of funding and the kind of countries spend a lot of money promoting these movies. We are a completely independent film, and so we need to get the word out so Academy members see it, is the first and foremost. But also beyond that, like I look at it as, I made the film. My dream was to kind of make a film that Armenians could take and be proud of, and it would be easy for them to show to their non-Armenian friends, because sometimes it's hard to drag. If I've had that experience of trying to drag friends to see a film about the genocide, and this is something that Armenians can be proud of and share, and your friends won't hate you for it. They'll go, "Hey, that was actually really good."
Yeah.
So this is your film, and with the Academy, let's see what happens. We're doing our best to make it happen.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. So we'll push for people to see it. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Anything else you'd like to tell us about this film and or your next project? Anything you want to spill here that you haven't told anyone else?
I would like to make more films in Armenia, and I'd like to encourage other young filmmakers to look at. I think we've had a stigma of everybody trying to make that big, important genocide film, and like anything that's related to Armenia is good. Like, we need more films and more voices, different voices, talking about different things. Our culture is so rich. There's so much to go off of. Make a film that has nothing to do with Armenia, but takes place in Yerevan, or has an Armenian character. It doesn't matter, but we just need more voices. I think.
I love that. That's my encouragement to a lot of Armenians as well, is that it doesn't matter what you do in the creative space, just do it, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And it may
and be
not
your own voice. Be your own voice. That's what we need is original voices.
Original voices. It doesn't have to be about Armenians. It doesn't have to be about the genocide. It doesn't have to take place in Armenia. But the more we are able to really express who we are and use our voice and perspective in the world, the more diversity we put out there, and the richer we are for doing that. And that's something that And we can't say enough of that, and especially when you have the young audience and the young filmmakers and young artists that then I'm sure you get asked this all the time, advice about, breaking into the industry or being an actor or being a director. That's, just do it. Just
Yeah.
whatever it may be, just do it. Right.
Yep. 100%.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I know you're traveling, and for those of you wondering, I am too. I don't have my typical setup, but we wanted to get this done before the vote next week, and we wanted to put the information out to encourage people to go see it and to promote it. So thank you for making time for us, and we look forward to hearing the update and the good news in the next couple weeks.
Thank you, Silva. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Azuma, 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 azuma.